Welcome to Rattling the Bars. I'm Eddie Conway. Between 1984 and 2005, California built 21 new prisons. During the same period, California built one University of California and several Cal states. In 2011, the Supreme Court ruled that incarceration in the California prison system amounted to cruel and unusual punishment due to severe overcrowdedness. They ruled that California Department of Correction needed to reduce overcrowding. The state of California reduced overcrowding both by expanding capacity, building new prisons, contracting with private prisons, and by reducing the population. Joining me now from Oakland, California is Lizzie Buchen. Lizzie is the statewide co-coordinator for Californians United for a Responsible Budget. Recently, your organization has tried to pass a bill to reduce sentences for drug offenses. The bill failed to pass. There's another opportunity now to pass that bill in the Senate. Can you explain to me what that bill was, how it will reduce overcrowdedness in prisons, and what you intend to do to get it passed?
Yeah, absolutely. So the bill is SB 966, and what it does is it repeals a sentence enhancement for prior drug convictions. So right now in California, if you are convicted of drug possession for sales or possession for transportation, if you have any priors for similar offenses, you get an extra 3 years for each prior to be served consecutively. And so what we're seeing across the state is that a lot of people will be sentenced for very long periods of time in county jail. And so we have a lot of people serving more than 10 years in county jails, serving more than 5 years in county jails, whereas before 2011, no one spent more than a year in county jail. And so this enhancement has resulted in very long sentences in county jails. And certainly some people are also serving those sentences in state prison. What this bill would do is it would repeal that enhancement for prior convictions. And so these are prior convictions for which a person has already served time, has already been punished for. And then if they get a new charge, that's an extra 3 years of incarceration added to their sentence. A major way that we actually see this enhancement used is prosecutors will bring it forward to extract guilty pleas. And so they'll use it during plea bargaining and basically threaten a person with 12 or 15 years of incarceration and say that if you plead guilty, then we can bring that down to 6 or to 3. So it would have an enormous impact if this enhancement were to be repealed. And so what happened was the bill went up for a vote in the Senate 2 weeks ago. And it was 3 votes short of a majority. And on that vote, 5 Democrats abstained. And so we have one more chance, as he said, we have one more chance to bring the bill up for another vote in the Senate this year. And we are working on those 5 senators who abstained that we're really hoping we can bring on to our side.
Okay, in Washington, D.C., apparently the Koch brothers is working with the Democrats. In other states across the country, from the right wing to the left wing in America, there has been a consensus that this prison policy don't work and they want to make changes on it. So why didn't they pass it? I mean, why did the 3 Democrats vote against it, and why did 5 of them abstain?
Yeah, and I think that it brings up one of the weak points of what is happening in this national conversation about over-incarceration and about mass incarceration is that a lot of it has really been focused on simple drug possession for personal use, and really low-level offenses. And the reality is this population, committing low-level drug offenses is really the same population that is targeted by those reforms that are looking at possession for personal use. And so what we're seeing here is, I think, the challenges with broadening people's perspective and not just looking at the lowest hanging fruit, but also looking at some of the larger problems that are leading to incarceration. And so, there are drug sales that happen in our communities, and in middle class, upper class white communities, those drug sales usually have no consequences, no criminal consequences. Whereas in a neighborhood with a heavy police presence, we do see very severe criminal consequences. And so I think that this really requires us to really look at the punitive laws that we have in this country, and how it's not just punitive against people with marijuana possession, which is this image that people like to put forward as people who are filling our prisons, when the reality is that's not who's filling our prisons. We actually need to be looking at reforms that go beyond that.
So what do you suggest that people do to help get this bill passed?
Well, we really want to put pressure on the 5 Democrats who abstained from this, and I think that we are really trying to make it clear how big of an issue this is for racial justice, for gender justice, for immigration. And we know that the senators who abstained from the vote care a lot about these issues, and they're receiving a lot of pressure from law enforcement in their communities, especially from sheriffs in their communities. And I think that that's unfortunate that they're receiving so much pressure from law enforcement. We know that we have a very diverse coalition on who are in support of this, and I think that what we would ask is that people in these districts make it clear how important it is for the community to be looking at doing things differently, instead of just jail after jail after jail, instead looking at community solutions. And so we've got Senator Jackson in Santa Barbara, Senator Hueso in San Diego and Imperial counties, Senators Hertzberg and Mendoza in Los Angeles, and Senator Wolk in the Davis area of California. Those are the senators who abstained, and we know that they care about the issues and the communities that would be very significantly impacted by this bill. And so we hope that we can the voice of the community can be weighed against the voice of law enforcement. And so we hope that residents of these districts make calls to their senators. All over California, we want calls to your representatives, and especially to these targets, to make it clear how important it is.
Okay, we'll continue this conversation in the next segment by focusing on how your organization actually stopped the building of a jail in San Francisco.
Absolutely.
So
thank you.
Thank you for joining me. And thank you for joining The Real News.